Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. Many of you have been asking me for an update on the Tesla stock situation. So that's what I want to do in this video. I want to briefly go into the chart of Tesla, especially after the recent movement that has occurred on Tesla stock, and explain to you what I think is going on here, especially from an Elliott wave perspective. So we'll dig into the Elliott wave model and explain where I think we are in this Elliott wave model. And also I'll talk to you about where I think Tesla is heading towards in the next several weeks and months. All right, guys, should be quite interesting. Join me. Alright guys, welcome back. Now before we begin, if you're watching my videos for the first time, especially if you're seeing one of my Tesla stock videos for the first time, it's possible that you might get the impression that I don't like Tesla stock, that maybe you think I'm always bearish on Tesla. Okay, especially if you've been watching my last few videos, you probably got the impression that Alessio does not like Tesla. That is not true at all. Because if you recall, if you remember my videos back from, for example, when Tesla stock was dropping here, do you recall what I was saying about Tesla stock back in January of 2023? In other words, almost over a year ago, when it was dropping heavily in this big decline that occurred. In fact, here's my YouTube video from the time. I paused it here so you can see it. This was published back in late December of 2022 or beginning of 2023. And you can see when Tesla stock was dropping here, as it was crashing hard into the $100 level, I mentioned that very likely Tesla stock was capitulating and I was looking for a bottom. In fact, here's the title of the video. You can see, is the crash in Tesla stock reaching capitulation? And I actually mentioned in that video that I thought it was reaching capitulation and a likely bottom at just near these levels. Okay, so I was bullish on Tesla stock when everybody else, most people actually were bearish on Tesla stock right here. But as a matter of fact, if I just zoom in here as well, you may recall that even afterwards, even after that, when Tesla stock was here, as it was dropping in this formation, and especially when it was doing this is back in 2023, over a year ago, when it was forming this ABC corrective pattern. You may recall I published a video and I said this is likely an ABC pattern. I was looking for higher levels. And as a matter of fact, that is what happened. Tesla stock rallied, got to some of our targets, and at this point I said quite likely we could see a pullback in the price. I think that was the summer of 2023. However, I did not get everything right because I thought eventually Tesla stock would rally higher and continue the uptrend. And that is why I published a video sometime last year and I said if Tesla stock was to drop below 200 or 190, then I can no longer be bullish. In fact, I would have to change my mind and become more bearish because the 200 to 190 level was a key support level that Tesla had to protect for me to maintain a relatively bullish perspective. In other words, we had to stay above 200 to keep the view that we might be in an uptrend. But as a matter of fact, you can see that Tesla stock broke below 190 and it broke down below 200. So that is why I had to change my mind and adopt a more bearish perspective. I mentioned this in the video we did with Charlie Burton, if you recall. So as we anticipated, because we broke down below 200 and 190, we're looking for lower levels. Now you could be wondering, okay, fine, but is there any hope for Tesla? Is there any hope that Tesla stock could potentially go much higher and perhaps take out the highs it made? For example, the highs it made at the very minimum in 2023 last year, or perhaps even higher. Is there a hope that Tesla stock could go and take out the highs it made in 2021 back over here? Well, I'm sorry to say, guys, that I think that the odds are quite low. In fact, I don't have good news for you at all. In my view, what's happening on Tesla stock, especially the breakdown below support, is increasing the likelihood that we could be seeing much lower levels. For one thing, guys, again, let's not beat around the bush. Let's just state the plain obvious. Tesla stock has been a great disappointment this year in 2024. For one thing, look at the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq and most other technology stocks like Nvidia, they've rallied significantly higher. So you can see this is Nasdaq, very beautiful rally since October last year, as you can see here. And if you look at Nvidia, a completely different picture from what you see again on Tesla stock, which has gone nowhere pretty much in the last several months. And in fact, let's go back to the chart of the Nasdaq. Here's the big problem for Tesla, which is that eventually, I think it's quite likely that Nasdaq will have a major correction, drop, and pullback in the next several weeks and months. In fact, the drop could be pretty severe, as I'm expecting in most stock markets. So this could put downward pressure on Tesla. In other words, if the Nasdaq drops in a severe correction, or indeed any kind of correction, it could put downward pressure on Tesla stock. I don't see how Tesla stock is going to survive a correction in the stock market, which I think is coming in the next several weeks and months. All right, guys. So yeah, I personally think what's happening here on Tesla stock is this. Let's go on a weekly chart. So as you can see here, a very strong uptrend from 2010 all the way up to the highs we made in 2021. And I think it's quite likely what's forming here is some kind of a long-term correction. And I actually think what's happening here, what I think happened here on this first big drop here was a likely A wave down. And I think this next bounce was a B wave bounce. And I actually mentioned this. When we broke down below 200, and 190, I said this is quite likely a B wave. And I think we're now in a C wave, taking us down eventually to retest the lows we made in 2023. In other words, what was to write this down? I think this was our likely A wave down from the highs of 2021 to the lows of 2023 or 2022. And then this was our B wave bounce. Okay, and B wave bounces, as we know, are composed of three-wave corrective structures. There it is, A, B, C of the B wave. And again, we're not just seeing this in hindsight. I warned about this a few months ago. So there it is, A wave down, B wave, and I think this is a C wave, taking us down eventually to the lows we made in 2023 to about here, about the $100 level. But I think we could potentially exceed that level. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen in a few weeks. This could take some time. But eventually I'm looking for the retest of that low in 2023 for that C wave. Okay, and I think, by the way, I think what's happening here, let me show you in this chart. So what I'm saying here, I actually think that it's quite likely, and I'll talk about this in a separate video, but if this was our big major rally from 2010, okay, then I think what's happening here, we're now in the A wave down. I know some of you are probably thinking that I was going to say we're here in the C wave, in this large magenta C wave down. No. I think we are here in this structure, in this substructure. I think we have now completed A wave down, B wave bounce, and we're now in the initial part of the C wave of the large A wave down. That's what I think is happening here. I think we're just in the beginning stages, or perhaps in the wave 3 of the C wave of the large A wave down. So in other words, let's just zoom in here. Let's zoom in. Okay. In other words, keeping it simple, if this was our A wave down, okay, and as we know, A waves are composed usually of a three-wave substructure. Okay, as what I think this was. So if this was our A wave down, all right, and the B wave bounce, then as long as Tesla stays below resistance, this is my higher probability wave count. As long as we stay below 205, or even, let's say, the 200 moving average here, then my view is that this is the likely C wave down. And I think within the C wave, which will take us eventually to retest the lows of 2023, probably, I don't know exactly when, but it could be by the end of this year or perhaps by the start of the new year. Okay, then I think within this C wave down, I think that this was our wave 1, 2. I think the wave 1 down was as a leading diagonal, and we're now in the third wave of the C wave. By the way, the third wave, the C wave, will take us down, probably eventually down to the $100 level. But at the very minimum, I think that third wave will take us down to the lows we made at the 140, 138 level, the lows we made in the last few weeks and months. All right, guys, so that's what I'm looking for. I think that this bounce so far is looking, again, very corrective. Let's go on the daily chart. There's nothing that Tesla stock has done so far that has increased the probability we're going to reverse trend. Quite the opposite, in fact. I think everything Tesla stock has done has shown to us that this downtrend is more likely to continue. Now, if Tesla stock was to get above this 200 moving average, which is now merging with this 205 level, it's possible I might change my mind. I doubt it. I don't think it's likely. But I mean, even if Tesla, here's a big problem here. I know some of you are watching this video right now are probably saying, Alessio, you're ignoring the head and shoulder pattern. I know some of you are probably saying, Alessio is ignoring this head and shoulders pattern. Like this is the first left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder. Well, okay, so some of you are probably thinking, well, if we take out the neckline of the head and shoulder pattern here, the reverse head and shoulder, then that would be bullish. I don't think so. First of all, let me say something about this. Head and shoulder patterns are extremely unreliable. That's why I don't use them anymore. Okay, so sure, sometimes they work, but majority of the time they don't work at all. Secondly, you can't just look at the head and shoulder pattern and ignore what's happening in the broader market. You have to look at what's happening in the Nasdaq. You have to look at the overall structure of the market. Okay, and here's the big problem. Even if we were to allow that we have a neckline of a head and shoulder pattern, let's say that Tesla did break out above the neckline, above 205. We still have resistance here. We still have resistance at the 200 moving average and the trend line resistance right over here. Okay, so it's not enough. If Tesla stock is going to prove to us and show to us that it wants to escape this downtrend and move back into a bullish uptrend, well, guess what? We need to break out not just that neckline of the head and shoulder pattern. We actually need to break out above several levels. Let me just show you. We would have to break above this trend line, this downtrend line you're seeing here, okay, which comes in about 230 approximately, the 200 moving average, and very importantly, we have to take out the highs of 2023, the summer of 2023. All these levels would have to be broken in order for us to adopt a bullish perspective. I mean, fine, if I'm going to be charitable, I would have to say if Tesla was to break above this trend line, then sure, yes, okay. Then if that happens, which I don't think is going to happen, I think it's highly unlikely, but if that occurs sometime this year, then yeah, I might change my mind and become more bullish on Tesla. I don't think it's likely though. Everything about this rally that we had last year, showed to us that we had a B wave structure, a B wave rally. Okay, this was a corrective ABC B wave, and I think we're in a C wave down. And so far, I think we are in the third wave of the C wave. In other words, wave 1, 2, and that means we're likely in the third wave down, eventually to go back to retest the lows of 2023 again in the next several months to about $100 level and potentially even lower than that. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately, but at a minimum, I'm looking for a move down to 140, 138, and yes, eventually down to the 100 level, the 161 extension, golden ratio extension. Okay, now if Tesla, as I mentioned before, sorry for repeating this point, if Tesla was to get back above this trend line and 205, if it broke above both these levels, then sure, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and I might change my mind and become bullish. But guys, I'm sorry, I don't think that's likely. So pretty much everything I've said in this video, the wave count and also the structure on the Nasdaq, the fact that we're due for a correction in the major stock markets will eventually put downward pressure on Tesla, and I think we're going lower. By the way, if Tesla stock was to break down, as a confirmation, I'm looking for a breakdown below this purple level. So watch this level very carefully, okay? This purple level at 167. If this level breaks, yeah, very likely we're going to go down to 140, this low we made back in the spring. So watch this level extremely carefully, 167. If this level breaks, which I think is going to, a sustained move below this will take us down to 140, and then below this level, we're going down to 100, which I think is eventually where we're going in the third wave of that C wave down. All right, guys, that's what I have here on Tesla at the moment. All right, guys, thank you very much indeed for watching this video. If you got something from this video, please give it a like, and also please subscribe for future video updates as well. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.